Welcome to Washington, East to West Sports. This is episode 122. I am Matt Beatty, joined alongside, as usual, by Sean Beatty and Kevin Ardall. If you want to get involved in the show, go ahead and tweet at us. I'm at Matt. Sean is at NastyBilly22. Kevin is at C2Believe. That's SEA2Believe on X or Twitter. Subscribe to us on YouTube and tell us what you think of the topics we talk about in the comments below. Gentlemen, yesterday was the I don't know what you call it, the four fecta, where all the four major sports were playing. I wasn't watching any of those because I was watching the Seattle Sounders. That's right. They were playing in the MLS Cup playoffs against Houston, and it was a little bit closer than I really wanted it to be because Houston was down a man for the majority of the second half, and the Sounders could not score a goal in regulation. Luckily, they won it in penalties. Sean, did you watch this game?
I did watch this game. Yeah, it was frustrating. I would say they were the better team for most of the game too. Um, but yeah, it was rather frustrating not getting that goal in, especially if they had lost. If they had lost after being a man up for a while, that would have been frustrating. They didn't. Honestly, I think they got less pressure after the man. They went up a man. It felt like I was just like, oh, we're not really doing much since then. It kind of felt like they were playing for it. That's been their issue all year is just lack of offense. They've been a very good defensive team. But I mean, they got it done in the penalty shootout, so there is that. That's that. They definitely had more chances than Houston did. So I mean, that was awesome. But yeah, it was a little frustrating, but mitigated by winning at the end.
Stephen Fry stepped up in that PK shootout and made the save, and Sounders converted all their chances, so that's all they needed. But man, did they make it way more interesting than it needed to be. Next game is Sunday, November 3rd at 3:30, so same time as the Seahawks game. So if the Seahawks game goes bad, you can always switch over to the Sounders. So support the Seattle Sounders. Kevin, did you watch any European football
I
yesterday?
did not.
Okay. Well, just so you know, you have an outlet just in case the Seahawks go poorly on Sunday. It's on FS1 too, so that should help too. Um, all right. Well, let's move on to the Seattle Kraken. And it's been a bit of a mixed bag since our last podcast. They had a 5-game homestand, and it was less more bad than good. But they beat the Flyers 6-4, they beat the Flames 2-1, and then lost the final three games of the homestand 3-2, 4-3, and 4-1 to the Avalanche, Jets, and Hurricanes, respectively. Did bounce back tonight with an 8-2 win on the road in Montreal. And I will give a live report because I was at the game on Saturday against Carolina, and that is the second worst game I have ever seen them play. The first was the opening year when I took our dad for the first time, Sean, and they got shut out by the Winnipeg Jets 4-0, and they just looked like absolute doo-doo. Um, Carolina is very good. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. They're just a deep team. They have great defensemen. The Kraken had like 9 shots through like 1.5 periods, and then they finally kind of picked it up with some penalties and other things. But Carolina just kind of imposed their will and scored early, and took my girlfriend to the game, and she was very much into it, which was awesome because she's just cheering the Kraken on, and that's all a boyfriend ever wants, right? So it was good to get out and take her to a game. The only problem is she may be cursed, and she's not home right now, so she can't defend herself. So she hasn't seen a win yet that I've taken her to. I took her to the New York Rangers game when we saw Scotty a couple years ago. They lost that game. She wasn't able to go to a game last year, and then I took her to one this year for date night, and she's 0-2. So I don't know. Is there, I know there's a Sabrina Carpenter curse with a lot of teams who have her jersey on, who she wears their jersey and they start losing. So,
There's the famous
you know,
Drake curse as
yeah, there's a
well.
famous Drake curse as well. And then there was a Madden curse for a little while, but I think that's kind of died off at this point. Although it still kind of does happen from time to time. But overall the Kraken, they're 5-4-1, 11 points, tied for third in the division. Uh, I'm sure it's probably going to be reiterated from what we said last time. But this team is fine, 5-4-1, and they've got a decent little road trip coming up here. They go and play the Toronto Maple Leafs on Halloween next. Sean, what have you thought of the Seattle Kraken? And are you sad about the Sharks? Because, oh, they're tied. Sorry, they're tied.
Yeah, and they won yesterday too.
Yeah.
I I, I can't say I'm sad. Last I checked before today, they were literally in the spot I thought they would be. They would be the first team out as of right now. So it was literally they are the last team in as of right now. So it's 100% what I thought it would be. It's they're what was it? Score 8-2 is what the final was.
Yeah.
So going into this game, they're 4-4-1 with a exactly zero goal differential. That is the most average, perfect average team there is, and that is exactly what I think of the Kraken and what I thought they were coming into the season. So my answer, which might probably be the answer later in the podcast for something else, is yes, this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. Today's results skewed a little bit. +6 looks a lot better than zero, but minus this one game, yeah, this is exactly what I thought the Kraken would be. And it's not again, it's not a bad thing. It's just that like, does it? What's the goal? What as someone just at home watching it, what is your goal for the season? And if your goal is Stanley Cup, then you're probably disappointed. If your goal is not to be as bad as it was last year, then you're probably pleased. So it just depends on what your goal is. My goal, what I thought they would do, I thought, well, I guess my goal is better than I think, but they're exactly playing exactly how I think they would.
Yeah, so they've got a 5 game road trip following their 5 game homestand. They're at Toronto on Thursday. Then they have back-to-back games on the weekend at Ottawa on Saturday. And then once again, if you want to switch from a potentially bad Seahawks game, you can turn to the Kraken on at 2 p.m. in Boston. And then they round out the road trip at Colorado on November 5th. So, Kevin, have you watched any Kraken hockey before I move on?
I have not, but I've been keeping up with the scores, which I was kind of sad to see them lose like what, three in a row. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that they brought it back today. So
All right. Well, tune into the Seattle Kraken. They are on Amazon now instead of Roots, so that is much easier, I'm sure, for a lot of people to watch their games. So if you have Amazon Prime, please tune into the Kraken and support the Seattle Kraken. But let's move on to a little bit sadder subject. That's right, the Seattle Seahawks. They have had 2 games since our most recent podcast. They won 34 to 14 against the Falcons, and then they lost on Sunday 31 to 10 against the Bills. Now, I'm going to throw this to Kevin first because Sean and I got the Falcons right, Kevin did not, but Kevin was pretty much spot on with his prediction of the Bills game. So, Kevin, what do you think of the Seahawks the last 2 weeks?
yeah, I didn't get to see the Falcons game. I was at work, but I watched. Well, actually, no, I saw bits and pieces because I had it on my phone for what I could see when I was able to actually see it, and then I watched the replay. Um, Coming off a bye, we looked fresher, crisp. Mike Jarrell with blocking at tight at right tackle, which was nice to see. Um, versus what we had been seeing with Stone Forsythe. Offense was kind of working for the first half. Second half was just defense and Kirk Cousins being poo-poo. Um, and then the Bills, yeah, kind of was what I was thinking. But not in the way that I thought. Like I thought we were going to put up a little bit more of a fight. Um, but it was mainly just a lot of we just kept it kind of continued the trend of what we've been doing in the games that we've lost, and that is just shoot ourselves in the foot like over and over. Just Lyman stepping on Gina when we go on fourth and goal. Uh, you know, roughing the passer when we don't need to. A couple other things, but uh, just not really good executed play. Bills D, showed up to where we just couldn't get the run game going at all. So it made us really one-dimensional. I mean, also it's just a contributing factor to that. Our O-line can't it just is terrible. Our O-line has no run blocking capabilities. So which is
You can
really
just say
sad
blocking.
because
You can just say blocking in general.
yeah,
You don't have to
yeah,
specify it.
yeah, just blocking in general is just I say our pass protection's a little bit better in my opinion than our run blocking, but um it's not a whole lot better. Like it's like it's like stinky armpit versus like stinky poop. I guess you could say. I'd rather have stinky armpit than stinky poop, but they're both stinky. Um, yeah, so it's um what else was I gonna say? So yeah, it essentially just made it to where like it was everything was just on Gino and the receivers. Um, we just couldn't, yeah, we just couldn't execute. Um, oh, then the tip pass interception. I will say the one person that did show up to play, who was playing out of his mind against the Bills was Michael Dixon, just punting like a champ. That dude was like murdering the balls on punt. Like his punts were insane. So props to Michael Dixon for showing up to play football. And then defensively, we just really couldn't get pressure on quarterback, and yeah, things happened. And then the run stopping game really wasn't there either. Sloppy tackling at times. Uh, yeah, just not following up. We just had a lot of bad luck scenarios too. Like, you know, the Bills fumbling forward for a first down, which is ridiculous. Just a lot of crap not going our way. Um, yeah. I like I said, I thought we put up a little bit more offensively, but just with absolutely no run game and with it all just being on, I mean, then the defense can just shift gears because they know you ain't gonna run it. And they can just, they did what they did. So, it sounds too like the Bills fans kind of showed up more in place, which it's kind of like on season ticket holders why we're allowing so many into the stadium. I mean, does that affect things? Yes, but I mean, the team can still play without that, being there. Um, Gino using that as an excuse, kind of like, it's like, bro, I don't care if the whole stadium is full of the opposite team's fans. Like, you still got to play. Like, I don't care if it seems like it's a road game. You still got to win road games, Gino. Like, it shouldn't matter what the atmosphere is like. I mean, yes, does it help to have the 12s in your favor? Of course. The 12th man advantage has been a thing, but um, you still got to win with it or without it. And just Gino and a lot of this team right now they just kind of go a little emo when things are down, and you're grown ass men. You can't do that. You're grown ass men paid to play a game. Like, honestly, most people would literally slit throat to be in your position. What I can't say would, probably, like they will slit throat to be in your position to get paid millions of dollars to play a game for a living. Um, so knock the F off, essentially. Like stop being grown ass just babies in adult, bodies and grow up. Stop making excuses, own up to what you faulted, and use that to get better. Essentially, there's no losing, there is winning and learning. You only lose if you pull what Gino's pulling, like in like other teams. Like you got to learn from your losses and use that to get better instead of moping in the milk. Like so, yeah, it was. I mean, the Falcons game was cool to see. It was a win that I kind of expected just because the Falcons are still kind of finding their own thing at the moment. And the NFC South is always a weird roulette wheel of confusion. We don't know what the heck's coming out of that division. So, I mean, like, yeah, the Saints like dropped 40 points, and then like for most of the game, it was like 3-2 on Sunday. So it's like, other than Tampa Bay is the most consistent team out of that division, the South, and that's weirdly saying because they're not really consistent. So, um, yeah, it kind of is what I thought it was. Just use this to move forward and try to beat the Rams.
Sean, what'd you think?
I think the easiest way to sum it up is the team isn't as good as they looked against the Falcons. There were some things that broke our way in that game that normally don't break our way. And then to Kevin's point, we're not as bad as the Bills game. There were things that broke our way the wrong way against the Bills. I think they evened out over course of the two games, but I would say we probably would beat the Falcons normally. We'd probably lose to the Bills normally. That's so the end result was the same. It's just that they're probably closer than both of those games. Like to the Kevin's point, I mean, honestly, probably at the beginning of the half, you could easily make the case the Seahawks are winning at halftime if we don't snap a ball over Gino's head or step on his foot. We're winning the game, and Josh Allen doesn't fumble the ball for a first down on a third down. By the way, where he's going to be tackled well short. We like it's 14-7, and the Seahawks have the ball at the end of the half. Could go up 21-7 if possible. Like just and those were all not Bills inflicted things. Those are all Seahawks literally did them to themselves, or the football gods fumble the ball towards a Bills player. Like it's just, and I would say probably again the Bills are obviously better team than the Seahawks, so probably at the end they probably do beat us and they move the ball really efficiently. But like everyone's, we said, I feel like broken record. We said this last time, the sky's falling, all this other stuff. I'm like, guys, like it looked ugly. I get that. Everyone's like, man, it's just awful. I see a lot of like it never would have happened or Pete Carroll, and I was like, guys, I was at the game in the Rams where the LOB died, and Todd Gurley ran all over us, and we lost like 40 to what was it 42-7 or something like that. Like I was at that game. It was awful. It was raining. It was the one game I ever thought about leaving early. So like it happens to everybody. It happens to every coach team. Everybody's gonna lose games. Like don't freak out. We're 8 games in the season. We're 4-4. And Matthew, can you share the screen again? I have something very boring to show you as well.
All right. You should be good.
Here we go. This is the same thing I basically showed last time, and the Seahawks are square in the middle again. Here we are. It feels like we are exactly average again. We are 4-4 and average. I don't know what to tell people again. Like this is just who we are. We're just average, and that's just what it is. It's okay. It's totally okay. We are who we are according to DVOA. That was offensive and defensive EPA. Doesn't take into account opponents. It doesn't take into account game situation. When a game gets out of hand, your offensive EPA is going to go up because the other team's playing prevent defense. It doesn't take any of that into account. It just is like this is what it is. DOVA, which does take into account what we are, what we're doing. We are the 16th ranked team. So right smack dab in the middle. Again, I'm going to say this, like we don't look as bad as against the Bills. We don't look as good against the Falcons, but we've lost 3 games as the Seahawks. And according to most metrics, we have played 3 of the top 6 teams in football. The Lions, 49ers, and Bills. And we've lost all 3 of them because they're really good. And we beat the teams that are bad other than the Giants. And then the Falcons are okay. Like, that's just what it is. That's just what the season is. And I feel like the broken record was same with the Kraken, but like, this is exactly what I thought it would be. Almost to the T. And maybe with no, exactly, because I figured going into the season we'd lose to the Dolphins because Tua would have been healthy, and I figured we would have beat the Giants, but they just flipped those 2 games, and this is exactly where we are. I agree, it doesn't look pretty sometimes, and it looks frustrating other times. But again, me and Kevin came over and we were watching the game. It's just like we just don't have the talent there yet, and that's just what it is. And it's just, are we as talented as the Bills? No, like, and that's like people are like find that shocking or something like that, and I'm just like, it's what it is. Honestly, even the prime a couple of years ago, we weren't going to beat the Bills. The Bills are just really good at football. Like, you have a stud Josh Allen. He's just like, we even got to get a lucky pick against him, and we didn't get any points out of it. So I'm not worried. The games, basically, to sum it up, these 2 games didn't move the needle at all for me because it's exactly what I thought the 2 games would go. Final scores, again, scores can lie to you a little bit. Like, the Lions put up 52 points. We talked about this, Matthew, in our little chat. The Lions put up 52 points, and Jared Goff had 80 yards. Like, the Lions had 200 yards of offense and put up 52 points. The Saints put up almost 400 and had 8 points. Like, not just, the final score doesn't tell you truly how a team plays. That's not to say the Lions played good. It's just that the Lions, the Titans played so bad, and the Lions took advantage that they didn't have to do a whole lot in order to put up 52. It's a combo of things. It's like, the score doesn't indicate actually how the game goes. And that's why you kind of try to separate it. And that's the whole idea of process. And the Seahawks, yeah, it looked bad. But like I said, other than completely Seahawks-driven mistakes, this game was a blowout because the Seahawks players allowed it to be blowouts. We're doing stupid things like like Kevin said, we're taking dumb roughing the penalty pass. With the game, that drive's over. By the way, that drive is over. There's maybe a field goal long kick in the rain, but then no, they get more. They get points out of it because we give them points. Then Gino later on in a game that's still pretty very much alive throws the ball at a guy's head. Like as the game, like it's just like it is what it is. Their emotions are getting embarrassed. I get it. It's raining. You're not, everybody's been more miserable in the rain when you're doing something and you're not having a good time. I get it, and it's not all like we're losing the clubhouse, all this other stuff. It never would have happened on the previous guy. And I say, I watched as the previous coach got flipped off twice in the football game. Never seen that before. I'm just saying, like every coach has issues with players. It's just like you get high emotions players, or you get kind of some guys. It just happens. It's not an indicative. It's don't look into it too much. It's just what it is. So I'm it's like try to be level headed. We're 4-4, and hopefully the Rams don't look as good as they did the other day, and hopefully they're not as healthy. That's about it. Hopefully we look a little better against them.
Yeah, I think Falcons game was pretty solid. They turned them over pretty well. That Derek Hall touchdown, basically sealed it. So, the Seahawks took advantage of their opportunities against the Falcons, and that's why they ended up running away with it. The Bills game, that was, I think you guys have already mentioned all the mistakes that I would have brought up. The tripping over the lineman. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know if it was like just wetness or I don't know what happened on that play, but that's just real bad. And then the snap over the head and Kenneth Walker picks up. It's just like, oh boy. So it was just a rough game to watch, and I switched over to red zone after the third quarter because I was like, this is over. Like they're like tumbling down the stairs and just can't stop themselves. So I was like, if they start coming back, I'll flip it back over. But I have some fantasy players that I wanted to watch as opposed to that game. So it was just you know hard to watch. And, I think Sean and Kevin are both kind of saying something that I'll probably say. I'm not really like Sean and I both predicted that they'd beat the Falcons and lose against the Bills. So I'm not surprised by either result. I am surprised by the scores of both games. I thought they'd be closer than they were. So that is, a little bit shocking, but ultimately it's a win and a loss. So, the score's whatevs. But the one thing that I did see on Twitter, I haven't seen what you guys have seen with the Pete stuff. I just don't care. Like Pete's gone, Mike's here. Who cares? Like like what are we living in the past
Yeah,
for? Like what would it matter what Pete would do? Like he's gone. It's
that's what I'm
over.
saying. I'm like
It's like
it's
I don't
done. Like
care.
yeah.
It's pointless
What
to
are they gonna
to play
fire
this
him after
thought
eight,
exercise.
eight games and bring him back? Like what are we
Yeah.
talking about
Like
here? Like
yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like move on, please. Like he's not been the coach for getting close to 7, 8 months now. Like let's move on. Like he was a coach while he was here. He brought us a Super Bowl, but he's gone. All right, he's not coming back. So move on from that part. The thing I do find interesting. I don't know if you guys saw the Jaron Reed, Derek Hall tussle on the sidelines, and I see a lot of people who are like. This is where I found the tweet. I'll share my screen. Hopefully, don't get copyright here. We might, but we'll see. Um, I found this from the third team, and you see this on the sideline, and people are saying like, "Man, they're on the same team. Like, what's going on there?" And you know, for those Seahawks fans who haven't been around a long time, this happened with during the Legion of Boom. I don't know how many
there's
times,
lots
but
of
it
players.
happened. Yeah,
There's lots of players who say this happens all the time with
yeah,
every team,
yeah.
basically.
And
I
it's
have
a
I have stories. I used to work with a lot of reps who played in the NFL, and they talked like famous fights. Look what happened.
yeah,
Like it happens. Like
yeah.
you're competing. Players fight. Like you just sometimes you don't see it, but they fight. Like it happens.
I mean, in training camp, you see fights break out all the time because guys are going against each
Yeah.
other all the time. Anger flares up. One guy beats the other guy a bunch of times, and then you get into a tussle. Veterans come
Every
and break it
joint
up.
practice has a
Yeah,
fight. It feels like every
yeah.
single joint practice has a fight.
And hockey is the only sport that allows fighting. So obviously, when you see something on the sideline like this, it's going to be a little bit jarring to those who either don't follow the sport or haven't followed the team for a long time and know some of the history of the Legion Boom players going at it. So it's like, it's not hard to tell. And first of all, I would hope that Jaron Reed, as a veteran, goes over to Derek Hall and says, "Hey, you are an absolute idiot for what you did. Like as Sean said, that drive was over. You had no reason to hit Josh Allen there. Like, what are you doing out there, Derek? Like, it's just an unnecessary play, and then you cost your team. I think what they score 7 points off that. I'm pretty sure.
What
Yes,
I
was
believe
it?
so.
Was it seven, Kevin?
it was 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just it's frustrating to see that sort of thing, and Derek Hall will hopefully learn from this. And good on Jared Reed for kind of
They
first of all
they
being the
showed
bigger
them they
guy and
showed
going
them
over to him and kind of
calmly. They
yeah,
showed them calmly talking
yeah,
later. So
yeah. Jared Reed
heated
was
in the moment.
yeah. I mean Leslie Frazier kind of calmed down Derek Hall in the moment for a bit, and then Jaron Reed went back over and had a discussion with him because you just can't do that. You just can't do that. So it's a thing of like you cost your team 7 points, and you know not that the 7 points really mattered in the final score, but if it did matter, then you would probably be looking back on your decision, much like a certain Bears cornerback, and think, man, I probably should have been paying more attention or
But
doing the
like,
right
look
thing.
at it. Like, if
So
if if the Seahawks don't screw up twice, they have the 14 points, and then that they're kicking the ball away, and the Seahawks now have the ball 14-7, and they're just, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the difference, Matthew, you said it perfectly, was like Derek Hall. They took their advantages. In the Falcons game, what I was saying was like why the game was probably a little closer than their score indicated. They took and capitalized on every single advantage in the Falcon game. The exact opposite happened. Every time they could get an advantage, they didn't capitalize. So in most games, it's going to be 50-50. You're going to capitalize on some of them, but you're not going to capitalize on all of them. So Falcons game would have been a little closer. Bills game, they couldn't fumble the ball forward and get out of the way. Couldn't get out of a late hit. So it's like, yeah, it was ugly, but like they're closer. And that's what I think. It's just like half the advantages go one way, half the advantages go the other way. We'd probably lose by 10-ish points. But they didn't. They all went the Bills' way. And it's not a Bills factor. That's sometimes you step on your quarterback. Sometimes you snap it over his head. And then Kevin also brought up a point during the game. If Kevin Walker's thinking, he just throw the ball out of bounds. Didn't do that either. Like, that's kind of screwed up twice on the same play. So not blaming Kenneth Walker for that, because that would be like crazy thinking, but still could have just thrown the ball out of bounds and then it's an incomplete pass. But like,
true.
it's just like it was just like it snowballed. Like you're right, it snowballed, and everything that could go wrong did, and that's what's going to happen. And is that if they play the Bills again, they're not going to lose by 21. That's just what it is. But it happened on that day that they lost by 21 because everything went wrong, and it happens every game or to every team. It's going to happen.
And this team really seems like it missed DK Metcalf. Like it just didn't seem like there was as much available space without him out there to take up a lot of
But
players or bodies. And
we talked about that. I think
Tyler
it
just
was
couldn't.
hard.
Yeah,
Well, it's hard because it was raining, so it's not like their routes aren't going to be precise anyways. And like Kevin's point, the O line it's just not a feasible O line at this point. Like I get if DK is going to come in and block, maybe yeah, we would. I think we would have missed him more if it just from blocking. Like I just don't. Yes, he's a plus receiver, but I don't know if he's like moves the needle crazy. Like I don't know if he adjusts the score even a point if he's in the game. Like I don't know what he does in that game to even add a point because the issues wasn't wide receiver play. It Laviska the one play Laviska Chanel gets hit in the face with the football. Like I mean like near the end of the game, but the game was already over at that point. Yeah, I don't even think you saw that, Matthew. Like he goes out and it's like 30 yards or 25 yards. They're playing like soft defense and it hits him in the face. Like maybe he catches that ball, but like I don't think the receiving core was the issue of the game. It was just with it
I'm not saying the
raining with all
receiving
that.
core was the issue. I'm saying I think DK is like the Romo Dunze in the Washington offense that Ryan Grubb ran last year, and when you
Yeah, because he
take that
runs go
out of the
routes.
offense,
Yeah.
it creates a lot more pressure on all the other guys to step up and fill that role that the top wide receiver normally fills. So
Is DK the top receiver?
yeah, I don't
Like,
think it's like even a question, but
oh no, I listened to an advanced podcast and they were 0 for 3 on saying DK was the best receiver on the Seahawks. None of them said DK was the best receiver on the Seahawks.
it's
One
okay.
said JSN. That was kind of the crazy one. Two said Tyler. And again, like based on how you grade it, like Tyler's a better route runner and better hands. Like if that's the mark of better receiver, it's not DK Metcalf. I would argue the last 2 years it's probably been DK. This year and last year was DK took over from Tyler, but before that, absolutely not. But like I think it's still 1A 1B. Tyler is like still
Yeah,
like
I'm not like
I
slanting
I
Tyler on this at all, but
I don't
like
think
there's just a presence there. There's an there's
there's
physicality
been a
that Tyler
presence
just
since
doesn't
the day
have.
he stepped in the NFL, and that presence hasn't changed. And the difference hasn't changed. It's more of like I don't think DK's really taken the step. It's Tyler's just got. Sorry, Tyler. Sorry to say that, but like Tyler's still elite and JSN's still good. It's just that like, yeah, you're right. Like we do miss DK, but again, at the end of the day, I don't know how much points it puts on the board. I don't know. Like, do you agree,
I'm not
Kevin?
saying
Like,
it
I
puts
don't
points on
know
the board, but
how
it
much.
definitely helps the offense function
Yeah,
better
it
with
helps.
him than
That
without him.
good
That's what
players
I'm saying.
helps teams do well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, it sounds like the grade one MCL sprain, we'll see if he comes back.
Well, what is
You
Kevin?
know,
What is Kevin? I
Oh,
asked Kevin. Yeah.
well, he's sure. I mean, does DK on the well, I don't think DK doesn't bring physicality. He just brings a deep go run ball. That's all he brings, which is a threat. Because I mean, that's the majority of his touchdowns have just been when he's in one-on-one coverage and then just gets a deep ball, then just runs it in. Um, but physicality, he there lacks of. Like he does not know how to use his body. What this team would it have been more with him? Maybe a little bit, but it doesn't matter when you don't have a run game and you can't block. You're one dimensional, and your one dimensional doesn't work. Because essentially Gino doesn't have time to get it to where the boys are more than 5 to 10 yards downfield, which is why it's so dumb when DK's yelling at Grubb, like, can we move the ball past the sticks? And it's like, no, we cannot move the ball past the sticks because your O-line is not blocking long enough to get that ball past the sticks. That is the problem. Like when you don't have a run game, it makes you one-dimensional. Like you need Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet in play to take off things because honestly, they're only going to put four up there, even possibly three, and then everybody else is in the backfield. And sure, you have three great receivers, but when most of them are double covered, except for probably one, it doesn't really matter nearly as much. Like you gotta have presence of of the run game to make them think, or else they're just that your offense becomes very just predictable essentially. It was like it's essentially the opposite of what Pete Carroll's was. It was like we knew we were going to run the ball. Run the ball deep pass, run the ball deep pass. We talked about it for years. It's like we're so run dimensional. Right now, it's just literally hoping that Gino gets a ball downfield somehow. Like that's our offense. Like it's just Gino scrambling for his life and hopefully finding something downfield. What they essentially need to do is make play designs to where like Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker is somewhere available for a threat. And then also there's times where, and me and Sean mentioned it when we were watching that, like there's been times where like the D line over pursues and like the C's part open for Gino to just run that ball. And Gino just needs to undo his Russell Wilson training that he was set and just run the damn ball. Like run it for 7 yards. That's what he needs to do. But because he sat behind Russell for so long and had Pete running in his ear, like he's still thinking of that downfield thing, and it needs to be slapped out of his mouth until he actually does it. Like it's like he's not that sure if something down play is available, great. But unfortunately, most of the time, because they're only pressuring four on you, most of your receivers downfield are going to be in double coverage. So there's not going to be a whole lot downfield. And that's why you need to run your freaking butt down the field for 7 yards. That's what you need to do, Gino. Essentially, so to a degree, I do agree a little bit with the DK statement, but it's essentially run game and O line need to be more of a thing, or making play designs that set up for fake screens. Not this side out Pete Carroll bubble screen bull crap. I'm talking about like little dink dunks to where like they can at least pick up 5 yards. Like you have to play the Philip Rivers dink and dunk offense is essentially what you have to do. And then hope it's enough to where once they start respecting it, then you can get the one-on-ones for a deep shot downfield if your traffic cones and teddy bear hold up. So
well, let me ask. We got a little bit of time for our break here. So I don't watch the O line that much during a game, Sean. What do the metrics say? How'd they play against Atlanta versus how did they play against Buffalo? Was it
I
like
don't
a
have
tale of two, or
though.
was it just
I don't
covered
have
up by the
those.
score?
So I don't have those readily available, just game specific. I have like season specific on just like so like passing specific situations. The Seahawks are 26th in the advanced metrics of just like worst O line in just passing. Now there's a little bit that comes into that because it's a collage of three different metrics into one and then averaged of the three. Some of them incorporate end results, and end results are influenced because Gino's been playing so well. So like the end result, like Gino does that, but that doesn't mean the O line actually blocked very well the whole play. Gino actually did some things. So I'd say probably a closer metric is probably about 28th is probably like where they in just straight up passing situations. running game is about the same. So I would say across the board, the metrics mostly say they're about 28th ish in overall offensive line. And that goes to the point of like, I don't say it, but like if the running backs really mattered so much, they'd be doing it themselves. But you need the blocking for the running game to matter, and that's why if you don't have an O line, the running game is not going to matter because it can't matter on its own. Running backs need O line play first, and if they don't have it, they don't matter. And the only thing that will work, the only thing that can work on its own is passing, and it's only going to work so much, obviously, because obviously better O line play makes better passing. But of the two, you have to pass because as we saw it, it's just not gonna work. Like I'm not even blaming Kenneth Walker, but me and Kevin made a comment where they're on the goal line and they run the ball. I'm like, oh, just run it 3 times. And there's 3 guys like 2 yards past the line of scrimmage as soon as Kenneth Walker hands the ball. I'm like, what is he supposed to do? Like that's what I'm just like, and I'm like, how is this supposed to function as an offense? Like when Kenneth Walker gets the ball and it's just like, again, a couple times just cut up the field, man. But like most of the time, it's still just like there's just nothing to do, and he wants to bust it outside because he's like, there's at least just like space out here, like versus like there's just other teams' jerseys in my face as soon as I get the ball. So I get it, but like to Kevin's point, we've got to do something else. Like get these guys off the back, a screen over the top of their heads, do something, and or dink it off to like Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet just with a little bit of room because like it's hard for them to do anything at this point. And then equally just as hard for Geno Smith to do anything when he gets back there. And I think to Kevin's point, especially on this game when it's raining, it's going to take even longer to get those plays set up. It was never going to happen. Nothing deep was ever going to happen in that game. So
All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Washington East West Sports. Thank you so much to our advertisers and sponsors. If you want to sponsor us, just leave a comment under the YouTube video and let us know that you really want to sponsor this podcast. But let's get back to the Seattle Seahawks. And I just want to finish up one more thought in regards to what Kevin said about the Bills fans being there. I saw some of this on Twitter as well, and then it was just like, the tickets are expensive and season tickets are expensive, and I can't blame fans for selling their tickets for probably a decent markup and making a little bit of money off their tickets if they don't want to go to the game. And on the other hand, you as a team have to give the fans a reason to put themselves in the stands and want to watch you play the football game. So it kind of works both ways because I understand Gino saying it's like a Bills game out there, and I mean you did just fine in Atlanta when the other fans were completely against you for the most part. I'm sure there were some Seahawks fans sprinkled in there, but it's a thing of like it shouldn't matter who the fans in the stands are, regardless of where you're playing the game. It's just like just play, it shouldn't make a difference. And it is frustrating to see Buffalo Bills fans there because I was at the Kraken game on Saturday and there were a lot of Buffalo Bills fans at the Kraken game on Saturday. So it
they
was,
probably double dipped. They probably
yeah,
came for both.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So it's like, I can't fault fans for wanting to travel with their team, and if they get tickets online, then sure, go see your team play. And if that means there are less home fans in the stands, well, maybe we should ask ourselves why that is. So it's a thing of like, sure, I want all Seahawks fans at every Seahawks home game, but to think that is the reality is ridiculous. And also, if I wanted to, like, I'm going to Vegas in a couple weeks. If the Seahawks were down there playing, I would try and get tickets too. Although I don't know how expensive those tickets are, so I might not actually go to that. But because NFL tickets are not cheap, so if you're willing to travel from Buffalo to Seattle and pay for those tickets and see your team play and spend a weekend in Seattle, then good on you. And you're a traveling fan who wants to see their team win on the road. So I can't fault either side of the equation for selling your tickets to for definitely probably a profit and not wanting to see that beating. So it's a thing of like if you don't want other teams' fans in the stands, then give your fans a reason to be in the stands also. So that it's like a double-edged sword there. So other news outside of the games, the Seahawks before the Buffalo Bills game traded for Ernest Jones the fourth. They traded Jerome Baker for the linebacker that was playing for the Tennessee Titans, played previously for the Los Angeles Rams, and was on the team when they won the Super Bowl. Played every snap against the Bills. Kevin, what did you think of this deal?
Um, Yeah, like Baker was kind of hit and miss. Like there were times where he'd make plays, but then there was times out there where it looked like he was clueless. Like, and then also just the injury prone. Like Ernest Jones is solid, and you just needed an upgrade at linebacker. I don't know what his contract specifics are, so I have a feeling he's a rental. But which wouldn't be as good, but depending on his contract specifics, I'm okay with it. Uh, hopefully, just because right now you didn't really have a whole lot at linebacker, other than because Dodson's also been kind of flashy too. Like, there's been plays where I'm like, wow, that was really impressive, and then there's plays I'm just kind of like, is he humping a doorknob? But like, what is he doing? Like, um, so I get it. And then they also picked up a kid off of waivers that's a former Raven, so that made sense too, just because it's probably somebody that Mike McDonald's familiar with. So. Uh, yeah, it's I think it's too soon to tell. Like I need his contract specifics, which I'm sure are out there that I just haven't had a chance to look up. So
Well,
Oh, Ernest
he was
Jones
a
is
third
he's
round
a
pick
free
in,
agent.
yeah.
Yeah, after this
This
year.
is the second time being traded this year.
wow.
He was traded from the Rams in August and then traded again to the Seahawks, a third round pick in 2021.
I don't like
Sh
giving up a fourth round pick for rentals. So
Sean, what
it's
do you think?
Um, I mean, it's a fourth. I don't. I'm of the sense first three rounds are like the big, and then there's a huge drop off and anything. I mean, obviously fourth matters more than the sixth, but I think any day three stuff's kind of more dart throws than anything. So if he stays, it's kind of like it's nice. But again, it'll all depend on the money. I guess I'll link this to something you shared, Matthew, in the thing of Richard Sherman talking about how letting Bobby Wagner go was a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake because at this point, it's more of a mistake if you want to argue there was a mistake of letting a linebacker go, letting Jordan Brooks go because Bobby Wagner's old. He's not going to be here for when this team actually rebuilds. I want younger players who can like help grow with this team rather than vets. You need vets when you're like, okay, now we're ready to compete. Let's bring some vets in. What's Bobby going to do on this okay team? Like, you know what I mean? Make us more okay. So it wasn't necessarily Richard's point of like that. Yeah, Bobby probably is better than the linebacker we had, but like, what does that do for us? You know what I mean? He's old. He's done after this year. Okay, like I'm more like I want like if an Ernest Jones stays for 4 years or signs a contract, reasonable contract, that's a good deal. Like that's something that we could build towards. But like right now, like Kevin's point, I mean, I see why people are said it's a fourth, but I'm just like, I get it. I get both sides. I'm just like Baker needed to go, didn't work out, and Ernest Jones, I think, is an upgrade. But like, I would what he got here 3 days before the game and things
Yeah,
like
he
that.
played the
So I,
Bills on the Titans and then played the Bills
yeah,
again.
yeah, I think good upgrade for sure. But we'll see really at this situation at this situation at the end of the year what it really like the Big Cats deal. Like give him a second, but it really changes if he signs in the offseason or not. If it's not a rental and you have to pay him, that's one thing. But like if you to give up a pick and get nothing for him other than that, if we're trading for Ernest Jones right now for a fourth with no intention of bringing him back when a season we're not competing for anything right now this year. What are we doing then? So I think this has to be for a trade and sign at some point, and he's open to it. He said so. I'll wait to judge the totality of the trade if he signs.
Yeah, I think it's an upgrade, and it's tough to have a guy be traded like 5 days, 3 days before you play and expect him to come out and play well. He played 100% of the snaps. It's just it's just hard to expect a guy to come in so late in the week and make a huge impact or make big plays or something. So we'll see what he is throughout the rest of the season. So it's just hard to say after one game and 3 days of practice. But if he ends up playing well and working out, then hopefully they do sign him to a long-term deal. And if it doesn't work out as well, then I would like to cut your losses and see what else you can do. So in terms of the Bobby thing that I sent, it's just it's a thing of like the Wolverine meme with Bobby, where you're just like sitting on there and you're like, oh man. It was nice when we had you. And I gotta say, like him in Washington and having success with Dan Quinn, like I'm happy for him, man. Because this one, it's not gonna happen here this year. So it's just like like set off your if you love something, set it free, even if it hurts, type deal. Because Bobby doesn't have a whole lot of years left. So to have him have some success in Washington right now, when not a lot of people were predicting that to happen, is nice to see for him, and then hopefully he can ride this wave as long as possible, and see what he uh-oh, we lost one. Um but hopefully see what Washington can do, and hopefully Bobby Wagner can find some success there while his career is still going. So yeah, Richard is kind of a homer in that sense. It's like, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Sean. It's like it would be great to have Bobby, but what for? It's just
Yeah.
like,
What does he do for
yeah,
this team?
it's just he would be like a Kyle Seager when the Mariners are bad. Like you pay a ticket to go see a guy play basically, and a guy who's been there for a long time, was part of the Super Bowl team. So it's like you know maybe Richard has a little bit of like, I wish I were still playing type deal, and I want to see these guys in the uniform I was in, but you know can't live in the past, like I mentioned about Pete and everything. So, um, there is the trade deadline coming up. We'll see if Kevin rejoins us here soon. But Sean, do you have any thoughts either way about what the Seahawks should do at the trade deadline? Do you think they should sell some pieces, buy any pieces, or just kind of stand pat and see what happens?
So they're not in a great situation for next year. They're one of three teams currently over the cap for next year. I don't know of any. The problem with that is, though, I don't think they have any pieces to trade that someone's going to want. Like I'm looking at getting rid of linemen we got for D linemen the Broncos last year. Oh
Draymond
gosh,
Jones?
yeah, Jones, Noah Fant going away, those type of things. But no one's gonna trade anything for you for them. So guys that like contracts could be moved with any sort of reason. You're not trading. See, you're not trading away the young, controllable talent like a Cross or a Witherspoon. That'd be crazy. So you're trading like older guys with some, but like those guys aren't playing well. The only guy that like is older that would like you could trade is like a Tyler Lockett, but Tyler doesn't want to go anywhere. He's not going to go anywhere. So I don't I don't see a path to trade away a guy for picks. So maybe if someone is like kind of like a Ernest Jones thing, if someone wants to give up like hey third or maybe a fifth for depending on the position, we got this guy that's young or whatever. Go that route, but probably I don't foresee much other than like an Ernest Jones another type deal. I don't see a move he could possibly make. No one's gonna take what the Seahawks have.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot they can do to. They could try and acquire talent. I don't really see that as a great possibility though, because I
I would say acquire talent for the future, not this year. You're
yeah,
acquiring
yeah, yeah,
young,
yeah.
controllable guys.
Obviously the offensive line is where you'd hopefully want to upgrade, and you don't really see too many offensive lineman trades, especially in season. So I would be shocked if they brought in an offensive lineman through a trade somehow. That's generally
If
you're
you
gonna have
traded
to.
a 6 round pick for a guard and like let's what I would think, and this kind of leads into the offseason and the draft thing, is your first round pick needs to be on a skill position. You have wide receivers, you have quarterback, you have corners. You don't need any main like first round pick guys other than a defensive end who I like our defensive ends, but all they do is rush the passer. They're not really great on run defense. So you need a guy kind of that is a true edge, like could do everything kind of guy. And you're going to be probably picking around 15, 13, 17, somewhere in there. Find one of those guys. And if you can't find one of those guys, trade down to the second round where you're not drafting a guard, in the 16th, because that's not good use of that 16th overall pick as a guard. But draft in the second round or something like that, get a bunch of like tackles, or not tackles, but guards, centers, linebackers, get all those guys there. And then, that's why you could trade like a fifth round pick or something like that. Just throw as many bodies at the problem because just figure something out. That's what I'm saying. Like, So if you want to trade a fifth round pick or a sixth round pick this year for a guard, I'm all for it. Just make a move and make something happen there. I don't give somebody a shot. Throw a dart. You like somebody in the draft? They're not playing. They're a backup. Give them somebody a fifth for them.
I think that's going to be pretty unlikely, especially with Abe Lucas and George Fant coming back. I think they're going to probably try and roll the dice with those
Those are
two
tackles
guys.
though. Guards are what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could slide one of those guys over. But it's a thing of like, I don't I don't
I don't
think
think
there's going to be
I would say Mike Jarrell. I talked about that would be more likely to slide. Fant and Abe, I don't think are capable of sliding to guard, but Mike Jarrell might be the guy that they've been playing now, who I think deserves to keep playing over anybody on that right side. So
I mean, if Abe is healthy, I would like to see Abe back in that spot.
he's the right
If
tackle. He's the
yeah,
right tackle. That's what
yeah.
I'm saying. Slide Jarrell in at guard because Abe and no and not no George Fant, their bodies they're not capable of playing guard, but Jarrell might be, and it might be I'll take at this point over Bradford. I'll take a might be over Bradford at this point. So I'm willing to give that guy a shot because I think his basics are solid at just general O line play. So I'm like, just make him a guard, and with whatever right tackle comes back first, let him play. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't
trade something, do something at O line for crying out loud, John Schneider. You have to. Come on.
we'll see. We'll see. I would be interested to see if something happens, but I'm just not sure there's going to be a market for it. But
No,
I suppose you
probably
never
not.
know.
Probably not.
Let's talk a little bit about some other NFL observation. Anything else you wanna mention that you've noticed in the
I
league?
will say there's a Anthony Richardson got benched today. Um, and there's a lot of like let quarterbacks sit, all this other chatter going on, and there's I don't think there's a magic sauce of like sit is good, play is bad, or vice versa. I don't think there's not a one size fits all for quarterback. There's some quarterbacks that need to sit, and there's some that don't. And if you knew what the quarterback needed, you'd be making billions of dollars because you would be the quarterback whisperer in the NFL, and every team would call you forever, and you'd make all these franchises. So there's not a yes or no answer, but like there's a guy who gave a list out and he's like, this quarterback, Zach Wilson Jr., Zach Wilson benched at 20 so, Anthony Richardson benched at 20 so, and then I proceeded to give 8 quarterbacks who are under 26 or under and are great quarterbacks that we all know are great quarterbacks. And I said, like, these guys are all good. Like, it's the biggest factor of if these guys work or don't work is just talent. Like, are they just good? Now, there are some guys who probably could benefit from time sitting behind somebody. But if Mahomes had played his rookie year or played more than one game his rookie year, he'd still probably be Mahomes. Like that's not probably not changing. There
Maybe,
is
maybe.
there's no evidence. You're just that's conjecture. There's no evidence to support that. Like
It's absolutely, and you can say it the other way around too.
exactly, but like usually players are just players. Like that's usually what they play up to their level. Now, obviously, surroundings help, but if you're good, you're probably just going to be good. Like having 3 rough starts isn't going to make you bad now. You're not going to be Mahomes to Zach Wilson. That's just not going to happen based on like bad surroundings for 6 games. It doesn't work that way. Mahomes isn't going to get substantially worse. Now, if the coach and everything, maybe the ceiling will be more capped, but like you'll still show something. Like you're the player who the player. Could you be put in better positions? Yeah, but like the prime example is Jared Goff. Looks terrible under Fisher. Looks great when he has good OCs. But like it's not like Mahomes is going to be the difference. And I could say like there's more evidence to the contrary because if every guy who sat got better, why are all the Tim Boyles and all these other guys suck when they come in? If it's simply the ideas and if it's just the fact that they're sitting.
Well, I don't think it's just the fact that they're sitting.
See, then it goes. It's their talent. Their talent level is the indicator, and then your bars are different, and then Mahomes is over here and Tim Boyle's over here. Now, would it maybe have helped if he sat here? Yes, but he's still over here. Tim Boyle's still over here. Like they're very different.
I think that's a weird comparison, but what I will say
It's
is
an accurate comparison. The talent dictates the player.
I mean, sure, but it's not you know, Tim Boyle was not drafted like a Patrick Mahomes was drafted. There,
But if it
there's
all it
differences in
is
that.
but what I'm
And
saying is if all it is people are saying like all it is just waiting and you'll get better. But like it doesn't matter. It doesn't truly matter at the end of the
well,
day. Do you get
I
better?
mean, it's hard to say. It's very hard to say because on one hand, you look at the Packers, and they have just like since we've been alive, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers sat, Aaron Rodgers comes in, is great. Jordan Love drafted, sat, comes in, seems to be good. I think it's too early to say, but um, it's seems to have worked out well what they do for drafting a franchise guy, letting him sit for a year, two, three, whatever, and then bring him in, and then he seems to be
That
ready
is
to take
incorrect. They
over
did
and
not
be
draft. They
good
did
and
not
fill it in.
draft. They did not draft Brett Favre, and they did not let him sit. Brett Favre did play his rookie year, and he was played for the Atlanta Falcons.
Well,
That's what. So it
I'm
did not
talking,
work out.
and I'm talking. So, well, sorry, I didn't mean Brett Favre because he was already on the Packers when I was
Yes,
born.
but
So
so it works for Aaron Rodgers. I think the biggest issue with Jordan Love is LaFleur is a very good coach. That is also the biggest factor. Aaron Rodgers does not have the luxury. Mike McCarthy is not a very good coach, but LaFleur has turned Aaron Rodgers into two-time MVP again. Aaron Rodgers was bad for a while, and then LaFleur came in and made him good again. Like I think there's an issue. Has Rodgers been
uh,
good since?
well, that's not necessarily the same thing because you can't you can't say like a coach brought him in because then it's not the talent, it's ultimately the coach.
But like that's what I'm saying. Like it's a give and a take. The scale is sliding scale. Like they're still in this. I mean, I'm talking to not just you. You get this idea for video games. Like there's a sliding scale of like you can adjust your Madden score from 90 to 80. You're gonna be on that scale somewhere. I think we agree that like talent will prevail, and then if you sit or start, the scale will slide in the 80 or 80 to 99 to 80. That's the Mahomes scale. Like Mahomes would have been at worst an 80. He's at best a 90.
I mean, he's playing
Tim
like an
Boyle's
80
going to
this year.
be
They're
the
still winning,
40.
but yeah.
Tim Boyle's going to be from the 30 to the 50. That the scale slides there. Like Tim Boyle sits for 5 years doesn't make him a Mahomes just because he sits. But like the scale sliding is sitting and quarterback play and surroundings as well as not just them. No quarterback is going. Mahomes right now is a perfect example. He's clearly the best football player on the planet, but is he putting up the best, having the best year? There's just not. They're trading for multiple guys. They've traded for guys in the offseason. They're trying to find someone to catch a freaking pass at this point. Like at a certain point, Mahomes is able to keep doing it, and I think they've reached the bar of like, okay, we just can't keep ignoring this for this long. Like we can't keep whiffing at wide receivers. There is a give and a take. It is not
But
just a
they
quarterback.
still keep winning Super Bowls. So it's like
They are
maybe
well.
you don't need it. You just need
No,
enough
that was that.
to
Well, that
catch
was
it.
last year. Mahomes went nuclear in the playoffs, but like right now, they're winning. They're 5-0, but they're not winning because of Mahomes. Trust me, he's on my fantasy
Well, yeah,
team,
I know
Matthew.
that. Yeah, I
Like,
know
yeah,
that.
like
Yeah, definitely.
they last year they won and did all these things because their defense was top five in football for the first time. So they perfectly planned it. Where like Mahomes is like, we have no talent on offense anymore, and then the defense is like, we're just going to be a top five unit, and they're like, well, that'll help. We'll just need a top five unit, and Mahomes make a couple plays, and we'll win a Super Bowl. But
And
like,
I think in terms of the under 26, like it's hard for me to say with like some of these guys like CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels, like it's a very small sample size, so I'm not willing to put them up on these pedestals that some people do
I
quite
didn't even
yet.
put Jaden Daniels on. I kind of
Oh,
honestly forgot all about him.
oh, well, I mean, there are a lot of people who kind of, uh, I mean, it feels like the analytics community says like you don't let a guy sit, you bring him in, you let him play, take his lumps. And at the same time, if you are saying that, I feel like you also have to acknowledge the fact that there's a lot more money in college football with the NIL and every
Yeah,
player's got an agent, and especially if you're playing at a big Division 1 school. I think we got to look at college football as, I think before all the money got involved, it was a very high amateur league. Now, with the amount of money
yeah,
that's in it, I think you've got to
it's
look at
pro.
it as honestly,
For it's pro.
it's
For
pro, and
at least for the quarterbacks. Yeah, they're
it's
making good
almost
money.
it's almost better than the XFL. I think it is better than the XFL in some ways because the XFL is um the alternate. I'd say it's like the
It's not the XFL anymore.
double
What is it? The
A
United Football League or whatever
or
it is now.
whatever it is.
I would say. I mean, it's hard. I mean,
Like you don't go to Alabama and not expect to get drafted at this point. It's just it's a thing of
No, well, no,
and
like if
Alabama
you're
doesn't have a pro team, so all the money in that state goes to Alabama football
well,
and
Matthew,
Auburn.
there's not a lot of money in the state. It's kind of a problem.
There's
But
not a lot of money in the state, but a lot of the money that's in the state goes to football.
yeah, but well, it's actually money from outside of the state because the people who get rich in Alabama leave the state of
Yeah,
Alabama.
but there's a lot of money in the Alabama football program, and you don't go there expecting to not get drafted and to not get paid a decent amount of money.
Yeah,
Like
but most don't that go to Alabama
what?
get drafted.
I mean, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but I would be willing
Seventeen
to bet
percent.
that 2/3 of that starting team.
You said starting. You did not say people who went to Alabama. See, that's where you get caught.
Okay,
People who
fine.
do not go to the majority do
Starting.
not even see the field. That's the issue. So you're going to Alabama thinking I'm starting. I don't want to call anybody
But
out,
with
but
the transfer portal, I mean, you can leave, find a way to
that's what I'm
play,
saying. Like
and
you're
then
saying
eventually come back once
a
you get
college
to play.
football team could beat them. I don't think a college football team could beat an XFL team because players leave so much now. Now, if you consolidated and made these teams what they could be, yes, but they're leaving so much now. It's kind of like 1 year, boom, go here, boom, go here. I don't know if you're gonna cultivate the talent and the time it's gonna take to like make a true juggernaut. You know, like the '01 Miami team. I just don't know if you're gonna do that anymore. And with like technology, you could like because they were like recruiting guys out of Miami. Now UW can recruit Miami just as easily with tech, you know, with the internet. You know what I mean? Like and see tape and all that stuff. Like it's
Kind of,
not
yeah,
like it used
yeah.
to be where you had to get on a plane. It's just like I can recruit you from anywhere. I can give you a phone call. I can Skype with you or whatever the rules are. I don't pretend to know the recruiting rules or how they're being broken nowadays because they're definitely being broken. But like, so like yeah, absolutely. Especially quarterback play at college, they're getting paid. They're all those quarterbacks are getting paid.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh yeah.
it
Good
does
money.
change that formula. I agree. Like because they're running more pro style stuff anyways at that level, so they're coming in I think more ready. I don't agree with I don't know if all the nerds are saying you have to start them right away like week one, but I think at least at some point, kind of during the year, you kind of got to see what you got. Your ideal is kind of how they're going to handle Herbert until someone got stabbed in the lung. But like they were gonna kind of slow play Herbert, maybe playing like halfway through the season, and then Tyrod Taylor's like, "You stabbed me in the chest," and then they're like, "Hey, this Herbert guy's pretty good." So, and then he never stopped playing again. But like, I think the idea of like letting him because again, like we talked about this, man, the quarterbacks get paid so much now that the window and the best chance you have of competing is finding an elite quarterback on a rookie deal. And if you spend one of those, let's say you draft him in the first round, assuming a first round, you have 5 years to where they're relatively cheap. That last year's not as cheap, but it's relatively cheap. You have 5 years of cheap control to build that team and have that team. If you spend one of those years not competing, it shortens your it just simply the idea of it shortens your window. It just shortens that window down, and it's just like, and if you happen to be like a Jalen Hurts and it's a second round pick, you've already cut your window down 25%, and then they have to fight, and then maybe that first year you're kind of figuring it out. You have to figure it out. Boom, your half your window's gone. And you have 2 years, and then usually they get paid on that last year. So you basically got that third year. You better win on that third year. And I'm like, you've turned that rookie deal into I have to win on my third year, and that's the issue. Is like the biggest issue is not that the analytics are wrong. The biggest issue is there was, and it's starting to come back a little bit with the Baker Mayfield and the Geno Smith deal, is there was no middle market for quarterback deals. It was the quarterback, whoever they were, paid the most money. And that's you got a lot of stupid deals that were up there. Like
I
this
mean, you
guy's
got a
making
lot of
how
them.
much
Yeah.
money? And so now some guys are like, okay, we got to establish a middle tier of quarterbacks, and then it's not blowing like if a guy comes up and he's like, I'm playing okay or doing okay, like, okay, we're not going to pay you top dollar, but like you can make like Baker Mayfield, you can make 35 million. You Geno Smith, you can make $35 million a year. But like the issue wasn't so much that the nerds were saying you have to play him because it, how are you going to do it if that guy's not a Mahomes or a Josh Allen when you are paying him Mahomes or Josh Allen money? That's the issue. It's not like that the quarterbacks are being paid too much. It's that teams are paying stupid quarterbacks too much. That was the issue. It was like, why are you paying X player that much when Mahomes is worth $70 million? But I can't even think of an example off the top of my head right away. But like, name X player that you know all these quarterbacks that were getting all this money. Like, why are you paying this guy this much money before? Like, that was the biggest issue.
Yeah. I mean, I think most quarterbacks are overpaid personally, but that's a discussion for a different time. So my observation is, I think that and it warms my heart to say this, I think that Russell Wilson has maybe found a permanent home. I think that Pittsburgh, of course, it's been 2 games. It's only been 2 games,
Yeah,
but I
it's been
think
two.
Pittsburgh seems to fit the style that he played when he was in Seattle in the beginning, where they have a very good defense. They've got a solid running game with Najee, and he is not asked to do too much in terms of when he was here in his later years, like trying to will them to victory and doing everything himself. I think there is a solid team balance there, and I, I kind of like the contrast of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and I would like to play them both, personally. And I know that a lot of analytics and people don't like playing two quarterbacks. You have one quarterback, you play him, blah blah blah. I think that you can give teams different looks, and especially with both of their skill sets, I think that if you utilize them both correctly, your offense can score points, and then your defense is going to be good enough to win you many games because they're leading the division right now. So it's a thing of like, I think that Justin, I think it's the last year of his deal. I would imagine this is probably going to be a 1 year thing, but I think that Russell will probably be the guy if the team succeeds this year, will be the guy who they put 3 years, 3 years, maybe four. I don't know. He's 35, so I'm not sure how many years they're going to give him. But I think he has found a system that works for him, and
I
I'm happy to see him after the Denver saga. I'm happy to see him find some success.
I think we took the wrong lessons away. The defense has nothing to do with Russell playing good. They have nothing to do with each other. The other thing is Najee Harris sucks. He's terrible at football. Their O line's terrible at football. Najee Harris has been very good at 2 games, and I wonder what happened in those 2 games. Russell Wilson showed up. Justin Fields also is bad at football. That offense was awful with Justin Fields. It was not good. The offense has been very good with Russell Wilson. What I will say is that first game, I don't know how many of those catches were. It was really on Pickens. Like Pickens is making plays. Like Russell throws the ball, but like Pickens does like 90% of the work on those plays. And I'm like, I don't know if like if Pickens doesn't catch a couple of those, or there's that play Firemuth makes that crazy one-handed catch too. If they don't make those crazy catches, the stance on Russell Wilson is very different. I think he's playing fine. Um, He's not ever going to be old Russell Wilson again. Obviously, I mean, he's what do you say? He's 35.
34, 35. I think we're about the same age, something like
You
that.
know, I'm 37. I do not feel the way I felt at 27. Just like, and Russell's game was built on a lot of scrambling. He's just not going to be able to do that as much anymore. He still has a good deep ball and all that stuff, but like, I think there Pickens is good. Like he is the opposite DK. He is the guy who, as Kevin wanted to use his body, he does. He's the guy who uses his body. Now Pickens just doesn't think any separation ever, but Russell will throw the deep ball, and it was always going to be a great combo between the two. Pickens knows how to win a one-on-one ball, and Russell knows how to throw a one-on-one ball. It is the contrast. It has been proven over and over. Passing game opens up the running game. Running game does not open up the passing game. Najee Harris is not affecting Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is affecting Najee Harris. Pittsburgh's O line is not good either. That might be a problem when they play, I want to say, better teams. Because again, they did play the Giants. The
They
Giants are
did play the
not good.
Jets too, so yeah, I'm gonna take that
Well, the
into
Jets are
consideration.
decent on defense, but I think honestly, we see it. Aaron Rodgers that man. If
Washed.
there's ever been a locker
Washed.
room cancer, if there's ever been a locker room cancer, it's Aaron Rodgers, right?
And,
Like we
he's
can all agree.
washed.
Like
He's washed. Yeah.
I think what we took out from that Russell situation is Nathaniel Hackett clearly is not an NFL coach. I mean, and he's been benched by the Jets now. He's just done. And Sean Payton didn't want anything to do with him. Russell was fine his second year in Denver. Not
So
great,
so let
but
me ask,
fine.
do you think Russ has found a home there, or do you think
Unfortunately, I think you're right. I think they sign him. Uh, 3 is
because
probably a
look, they're
lot, but
six and
like,
two.
yeah.
I don't know what their schedule is, but if I think I could see them going.
I
Of
mean,
course
they have to play Baltimore. I assume they have to play. They have to play the division,
they have to
and
play the
with
division, but Cleveland is Cleveland, although Jameis
Jameis,
elevates them
that
a
team's
bit.
going to be decent, a lot better with Jameis. Like that's the thing. Jameis is a fine quarterback, and that defense is very good.
Joe Burrow,
Look,
3-5. Still Joe Burrow, but eh. And then
I,
Baltimore is Baltimore, but they did just lose to Cleveland. So, you
Everybody
know,
loses. I don't care if you lose a game to
yeah,
Cleveland. Like
but I
it's
could
everybody's
see
gonna
them
lose a
like,
game.
you
Baltimore's
know,
still very good at football.
splitting the division. That's, three. I don't know how many divisions the game they played, but
I think
three and
that most
three.
teams have only played like one, so they usually have like 5 games left. That is a tough
So,
division.
add another three, that's nine.
If
I can
if
see him get to
Russell
11 wins, win the division. Like you can
Russell
make a
is the
run.
it is the first time a quarterback has put up 400-yard games, 400-yard games since like Ben Roethlisberger did in like 2018 or something like that. Like Russell's coming in, they've been much better offensively. Like Justin Fields never needs to see the field again for Pittsburgh. Done, send him away. Like it's been night and day difference with him on the field. But like so, I'll say this: I think Russell will start playing a little bit less well because these 2 weeks have been very good. They've been very good efficiency team, and honestly, should have been better. I don't know if you saw any of the game because I was watching all the sports yesterday. Had a bunch of screens on, and the game's probably better. There's a guy who face mask on the first driver. The Pittsburgh scores a touchdown, and the face mask doesn't even affect the play, and it should have been a touchdown for Russell Wilson passing. And then just like a dumb plays that were like a holding on the goal line. Russell was going up and down. They were going up and down that field.
Oh, and by
And
the way,
again,
can we just say if he taps a foot twice, it's a catch?
yeah,
Can we put
they
that
were
in there? Because
short.
that's a
Yeah, they were
catch.
short. Yeah,
That's a catch.
they missed a second touchdown because he tapped the same foot twice and not the other foot. Like it clearly could have been a much better game. That offense is so much more efficient with Russell. I think it won't be to expect it to be that efficient is not realistic. But because if they do get that efficiency, Matthew, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender if they get that efficiency. If you told that offense puts up 400 yards a game with that
Well,
defense,
no,
I mean,
I don't think it's gonna keep that up
but
because
like
Jets and
realistically,
Giants.
when they're worse, and Baltimore's clearly, I still think the best team in that division. If
Yeah,
like if they do that and that like for the first time in a long time, if Russell plays for that team, it'll be hard for me to say this because I root against Pittsburgh every time. They might actually win a playoff game, Mike Tomlin. He might actually get a playoff win here. Like
I'm not rooting for the Steelers. I'm rooting for Russ.
I know that's what
that's it.
I
All right.
was all in on the Jets game because obviously I'll root against Aaron Rodgers every day of the week. Like I was
Absolutely.
like, oh, let's do the thing. But the last game, I was like, I don't know. Let's just see if Russ plays well. I didn't really care who won. I just wanted to win my fantasy. So I guess that's how it goes from now on. If there's someone easy to hate like Aaron Rodgers against you, then that's fine. But usually it's against Pittsburgh, more my fantasy team. And so I had some receiving options for the Giants. So I was like, I want Pittsburgh to win, really get up by a bunch because I wanted them to kick field goals, which thankfully they did because of face masks and stupid things.
I did beat Kevin.
And
I'm not here to gloat. He's not here to gloat though.
and
So
the Giants were down by a bunch, so they threw the ball more. So I was like, that's what I want. I that's what I want. So I was
I mean,
by
I
de
had Malik
facto I
Neighbors,
wanted
so I was
Pittsburgh.
fine with that too. So
I wanted Pittsburgh to win, I guess, because I wanted the Giants to have to throw the football. So
all right, LA Rams at Seattle, 1:25 p.m. this Sunday. Following is a bye. It's on Fox. Rams are currently 1.5 point favorites. The over/under is 48.5. I have been telling people I think this game is going to be indicative of the rest of the season. I think if they win, they're going to continually get better and have a shot at the division and playoffs at the very least. But if they lose, I think it's just going to keep going downhill. I don't think they're going to recover, and I think it's just going to be a lost season. So with that being said, Rams getting healthy again. I do. I could see this game going either way. I do think it's going to hit the over of 48.5. I
yeah,
don't think either defense is really going to hold the other offense much. I think it's going to come down to which defense actually gets a stop at some point. Um, uh, DK is questionable. That will be a big factor as well. I am gonna I'm gonna take the Seahawks, and I'm gonna say the score is it's over 48.5, so 37-34.
I'll say this before I forget. 31-35 is what I thought in my head, like right off of it.
So you got the
Um,
Rams?
I have the Rams
Okay.
because I think we're in this situation of right now with them being healthy. They're just I think talent wise and coach wise, Sean McVay's still very good. That team when it with healthy weapons is just dangerous still, and it's going to be like both teams good offense. They're actually identical now that I think about it. Good pass catchers, good quarterbacks, terrible O lines because of it. The Rams at least are because of injuries. It depends on how quickly they get healthy. Because if they get healthy, then it's going to be over. But like the Seahawks are just bad O line too, and the defenses are like there's some pieces, and they're just young still, and they haven't figured it out. They're basically the same team. I just think that like Sean McVay maybe doing it for a number more years is maybe the deciding factor. And I think that's just that'll do it. I don't think DK is going to play, so I think that will be also the factor too. Like this game, I think DK will matter because it'll be close enough where it will matter, and Puka and Cooper Cup are just better than JSN and Tyler if you line them up. Even if they're might even be better than Tyler and DK. I'm just going to be honest, those two. So yeah, it'll be close, 35-31, about a field goal, but yeah, they'll be the over, and it'll be a close game. It'll be a one-score game.
All right, let us know what you think. Go ahead and tweet us at Matt. Sean is at AskBilly22. Kevin is at CE to Believe. That's SEA to Believe. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Tell us what you think of the comments. Tell us what you think of the topics we talked about in the comments below. We'll be off for next week, but we will come back the following week. And we'll have some Seahawks to talk about, maybe some Mariners. We'll see Kraken, and we'll see where the Sounders are at. But with that, we will see you next time on Washington East to West Sports. Bring back our Sonics.